Hey everybody, finally back. I know it's been a while since I've done a video. There's just been a lot going on with summer, having to have time to go to work every day, dealing with seizures, life in general. So it's tough to have the time to do new content. And you know what? You just got to make the time. So I'm here to bring you another video for our Fear versus Freedom channel, which I think is just going to end up becoming my Fear versus Freedom channel. Like I said, life can get the best of us, and if and when Chase can join, I'm going to keep him as an administrator and he can upload anytime. So until then, I'm going to just do what I can do to keep this type of content coming, to keep educating, because that is a passion of mine, as I have witnessed so much suffering and destruction and learned that all of it could have been avoided by taking some time to educate myself, which I never did. And so this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm here to help whoever's willing to listen. Even if it's just one person, I'm here to talk to you. So today I want to talk about a pretty important topic that is overlooked by the vast majority of the world population. And because it's something that we're all exposed to, unless you're vigilant and determined to avoid it by paying close attention. So let's jump into today's topic. We're going to talk about excitotoxins, and specifically excitotoxicity. Now, that's a really big deal neurologically and actually throughout your entire body. What the heck are excitotoxins? I mean, it's almost like, geez, this sounds exciting. This should be great. But then you see the word toxins and you're like, okay, is this good? Is this bad? Well, it's bad. It's really bad. And if you can learn how important this really is, you have a great chance of reducing your own chances of having things like a stroke, Alzheimer's or dementia, Parkinson's disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. We'll jump into it. But these type of things, these excitotoxins, literally are destroying your brain, killing neurons, destroying your dendritic cells. We're going to jump into a little bit how. I'm going to try to keep these videos brief. I get a lot of feedback from people like, oh, I love your content, but an hour-long video? Who's got time for that? Well, you do if you want to cut out watching The Bachelor or Stranger Things, or binge watch entire seasons in a week. Trust me, if you can just dedicate a little bit of time every day to your life and improving your quality of life, especially by focusing on nutritional education, it's worth it. Okay? Sorry, just a little bit of a rant there. So here are a couple examples of excitotoxins. Monosodium glutamate, also known as MSG, right? And aspartame, aspartic acid. Now, aspartame, you might know it as NutraSweet. It's an artificial sweetener that's added to diet sodas, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, Pepsi Max, you name it. It's a sweetener in chewing gum, it's a cheap chemical that they can mass produce. It's very sweet, so they don't have to use a ton of it. But what you don't realize is it's neurotoxic. It's toxic throughout the whole body. It interacts with our glutamate receptors, which are literally in every cell of our body. So let's jump in and learn a little bit about it. In fact, I only wore the hat, 2 years ago. I'm willing to bet if I cut my arm or something, I'd freaking bleed Diet Coke, because I drank it that much. I'd wake up early in the morning, head down to the gas station, buy a 64-ounce of Diet Coke. I'd buy two of them, one for me, one for Mandy. And we'd start our day with a giant Diet Coke and just drink them throughout the day and then go back and get more in the evening. Literally never drank water. Always drinking diet soda, and honestly, I know a million people like that they hate water, so they're drinking Diet Coke, or they're drinking Crystal Light, also sweetened with aspartame. This is going to kill you, I promise. Now, avoiding sugar avoiding drinking the sugar and the corn syrup in the sodas. That's actually a really smart thing to do, but not replacing it with diet soda. You're going to want to find something with a natural sweetener like monk fruit or stevia. So I highly suggest switching to Zevia, which we love. Water, just learn to love water. And anyway, let's move on. So what is glutamate? Okay, glutamate is a free amino acid that the nerve cells use to send signals to other cells. Okay, it's a neurotransmitter. It's the most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter in the nervous system by a wide margin. In fact, well over 90% of the synaptic connections in the human brain utilize glutamate. Sounds like it's very important, right? So what's wrong with having a lot of it? Well, it is very important. But the body is always built to have balance in all things, right? We know that. Moderation in all things, there's supposed to be balance in all things. So why the heck is monosodium glutamate or any other form of glutamate like, and there's many, hydrolyzed soy protein, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, isolated soy protein, modified food starch, yeast extract. There's a million ways they can get this into our food by avoiding the label of monosodium glutamate. Why is it so dangerous? Well, glutamic acid is an amino acid that occurs naturally in a variety of foods. You're going to find glutamate in vegetables like tomatoes and broccoli. It's naturally occurring in meats and beef and things like that. So it's not a big deal. So why not add more to make the food taste better, which is what every fast food and processed food does? Here's the big difference. Natural occurring glutamate in foods that are found in nature are bound. Those amino acids are linked together. They're bound by a peptide linkage that is slowly broken apart through the digestion process. Now that slowly breaking down of those peptide links during digestion gives the body time to manage that glutamate appropriately around the neurons and things like that. So these sudden urges or surges that happen when we eat food like this shit, this is loaded with free-floating glutamate that's found as a processed additive called monosodium glutamate. And it's called a million other things, right? When you eat something like this, the glutamate that's in this food that makes it have that just robust, hearty flavor, well, it instantly enters the bloodstream almost immediately and increases the glutamate levels in our blood, like 20 times. And they use it for a reason, because they can get sales, right? MSG fools the brain into thinking food tastes better than it actually does. So it is heavily added to all processed foods, all of them. And again, you're going to have to learn to read labels to figure out how they do it. Even in organic, okay? You're not going to find monosodium glutamate in organic processed foods, but you're going to find other versions of glutamate that they use to still make it taste better. And it's dangerous. Okay. If glutamate can be so dangerous, but it's also such an important neurotransmitter, how do we manage it in our body? Well, the brain's equipped to handle natural occurring glutamate in two very specific ways. So it can quickly remove the glutamate once it's secreted from the synaptic terminal, whisking it away in a special carrier protein. The glia actually will take it away. A carrier protein will grab it, the glia comes, and then takes it and stores it in the astrocyte. Okay, so this whole process, you can think of it like a pumping system. Oh, we're getting filled with glutamate. The nerves and the cells, the neurons are getting surrounded by glutamate. It's becoming very excitatory while this pumping system gets turned on, and the body starts grabbing it and taking it and storing it away to prevent this excitatory reaction. Okay, so that is actually a very energy intensive process. I don't know if you can read that. Let me see if I can get that to focus over there. Okay, it's a very energy intensive process that takes a lot of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, which is that energy molecule that our entire body needs. And this is produced by the mitochondria, and a lot of special needs kids, especially epileptics, autism, MS, you name it, there is some type of underlying mitochondrial issue where they're not able to produce enough of that energy to keep that pumping system running appropriately. So the glutamate builds up, excitotoxicity goes on, and it wreaks havoc in the brain. Now, the second method of protection from the free-floating glutamate that is in the bloodstream from our diet is our brain's own gatekeeper, known as the blood-brain barrier. Now, I'm sure everybody's heard of the blood-brain barrier, and you're kind of taught that it's this gatekeeper that's going to keep your brain safe at all times, and only certain chemicals that the brain needs can get through it. Well, it's over-exaggerated at how well it works, because stuff does get through the blood-brain barrier quite often. From our diet, from vaccination, you name it, toxins are getting to our brain. Now, normally the brain's pretty efficient at kind of guarding those important areas of the brain, but the continued and persistent manipulation of our food has destroyed the natural barrier, the natural balance necessary for it to work correctly. So because of that, blood glutamate levels are typically far higher than ever intended, and that glutamate gradually but regularly seeps past the blood-brain barrier into all areas of the brain, completely wreaking havoc. Okay? That said, the damage done is far less where the brain is protected by the blood-brain barrier, but a lot of people don't know that the blood-brain barrier doesn't exist in certain areas of the brain. Okay? The hypothalamus is one of them. So some areas of the brain, like the circumventricular organs, are not protected by the blood-brain barrier. Specifically, the hypothalamus is greatly affected. Glutamate destroys a vital group of cells called the arcuate nucleus within the hypothalamus. So let's take a look at a brain that's been damaged by neuroexcitotoxicity. What you're going to see are areas that are protected by the blood-brain barrier very well are actually quite healthy. They look very robust and healthy. And then you can see these other areas that were completely damaged by excitotoxicity. You can see how atrophied the brain is over here, and especially down here in the area of the hypothalamus. It's completely just destroyed and killed. So, I mean, it does help to see a bit of a visual of what's happening right now inside every one of our brains. And the brain is an amazing organ because it can make up for the areas of the brain that are being attacked. And so we may have no idea, right? You might go out and have a meal at a restaurant that's just so flavorful. Maybe it's Chinese food, maybe it's Red Lobster, I don't care where it is. It's loaded with MSG. And later that night, or maybe the next day, you just might feel a little cloudy. You might even have a headache or a migraine. For my son, he's going to have massive seizures. He only eats organic, and we avoid all of these additives as much as possible. It's very hard to do, so some stuff does slip by us. But the point is, our brain's going to make up for that, and we're not even going to know there's a problem for decades, literally. You know, there's plenty of people that go, "Oh, I've been drinking Diet Coke for 40 years, and I'm fine." For now, until that stroke hits next year. Or whenever it's gonna happen, I promise you. It's heart attack, stroke, dementia. We'll talk about it. All right, hopefully you can see some of this stuff. This is just kind of an illustration in the book that I've read called Excitotoxins by Dr. Russell Blaylock. He is a neurosurgeon. He is a phenomenal researcher. This is an amazing, amazing book, Excitotoxins. I'm going to come back and plug this, especially for the epilepsy community. Please read this. But he's drawn out all these illustrations himself, and so you can see where at the astrocyte, you've got all this glutamate around, and the mitochondria are generating the ATP to run that pump system, and the glia cells are grabbing that glutamate. The glutamate's going from synapse to synapse, creating that neurotransmission. And so this is how it's supposed to work, right? I'll just read the description of the illustration. It says, the method that the brain uses to carefully control glutamate concentrations around the neuron Glutamate appears to dissipate both by diffusion and by means of special carrier molecules, the glia, that transport glutamate to the astrocyte. When this carrier molecule is deficient, as in Lou Gehrig's disease, glutamate can accumulate dangerously high concentrations around the neurons. This process requires enormous amount of energy in the form of ATP. So we kind of talked about that. Now this is going to show, I'll read this and then we'll kind of point out what it's showing. It says when a neuron is exposed to massive doses of MSG, which it says massive doses, but really in one meal you can get enough MSG to trigger this process, so keep that in mind. The cell immediately begins to swell and dies within 1 hour. At 2 hours, the macrophages begin to clear the remains of the dead neuron away and clear it out. But with lower doses of MSG, which we're all exposed to every day, nothing appears to happen immediately. It looks like there's no harm being done. But after the second hour, it's just a delayed response, but after that second hour, the neuron suddenly undergoes a rapid death. This delayed death of the neuron is characteristic of MSG, aspartame, and other excitotoxins like carrageenan, things like that. There is some evidence that subtoxic doses of excitotoxins can alter the cell physiology. So what the heck is happening here? So with high concentrations of MSG, you got the neuron and it's swelling up. Like you can see, it looks like a giant balloon, and then it kind of it destroys itself. It pops and it dies, and then it's carried away by the macrophage, right? So why is it blowing up like that and destroy? Well, what happens is, through a lot of research, they figured out that at these high levels of MSG, what it's doing is it's just triggering the sodium channels, right? The voltage-gated sodium ion channels to open. And sodium just comes rushing into the cell. Because so much sodium is in the cell, it draws in a bunch of water as well, and it continues to expand until it's just destroyed. That's the fast death. The slow death at lower doses of MSG concentrations, they couldn't figure out why there was no harm being done and what the issue was. And so they ended up realizing that what was happening here was just a different channel. That low dose, it didn't affect the sodium channel at all, but it did affect the calcium channel. And calcium just kept slowly entering into the cell until it died. And there's typically after a 2-hour time frame. So either way, low dose MSG, it's killing your brain cells. High dose MSG, it's killing your brain cells almost immediately. So you really need to be paying attention to your intake and what type of dose you're getting. In fact, avoiding it altogether as much as possible. This is just a great illustration of the dendritic cells. You've got all the dendrite, right? With numerous synaptic connections coming off. Every one of those is going to be a synaptic connection where brain signals should be firing off. So that's a healthy one. Over here on the right that looks like a dead tree in the middle of winter, that's one that's been exposed to excess concentrations of glutamate, leading obviously to widespread synapse loss. Okay, so you can see how just our diet alone could easily lead toward Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease, white matter disease, you name it. We need to be very vigilant and aware of our intake. What do we ingest, right? So obviously you saw in that photo just the absolute destruction of the hypothalamus. Why is that important? What does the hypothalamus do? I mean, it is so important. So the hypothalamus, here's just a few of the things. It controls regulation of your endocrine glands, right? And if you've studied nutrition, you know how important your hormones and hormone production is. It's vital. And if your endocrine glands are jacked up, you're going to not have enough hormone production. You're going to be getting hormone production at the wrong times. So it's a huge problem. It controls your sleep-wake cycles. Big deal for everybody. Sleep is arguably even more important than proper diet, right? We need our sleep. My son's sleep-wake cycles are completely jacked from epilepsy. That's when he has the majority of his seizures because his sleep-wake cycles are so highly affected. It controls your hunger and satiety, so it definitely plays a hand in obesity. the origin of the autonomic nervous system control. So the autonomic nervous system controls so many functions of our body automatically, right? Especially in the digestive tract. So the autonomic nervous system is gonna affect almost every function of your body. Major limbic systems and integration areas of emotion, like fear, anger, love, compassion, and empathy. There is a lot of research in criminal behavior and behavioral health that shows diet plays a huge part in behavioral health, right? And being able to manage all of these emotions and how it expresses out in society. So people that have, shown horrific criminal tendencies, violent criminal tendencies, after probation, they've studied groups and tried different nutritional things to prevent exposure to glutamate and prevent hypoglycemia and things like that. And those that had proper nutrition actually never were violent offenders again, but those that didn't had repeat offenders over and over again. So super important, guys. And regulation of immunity, of course. What we eat is going to be a big part in how strong or how depressed our immune system is, which will make us more susceptible to illness and cancers or not. So we need to be paying close attention. Now, endocrine effects of MSG exposures in neonates. Moms and dads, okay? Especially moms. You've got to pay attention to this. Early exposure to MSG results in atrophy of the gonads, the pituitary glands, the major organs, decreased serum estrogen, decreased estrogen binding in the hypothalamus, alterations in, I forget what the luteinizing hormone and the luteinizing release hormone, which releases and causes disturbances in sexual behavior, okay? So many things that are being affected by glutamate. Even lower doses in neonates can cause early onset of puberty, which we all know is all too common. And everybody's going to point the finger to hormones in the food, which absolutely is making a huge difference. But so is the overconsumption of glutamate, free-form glutamate in our food. Okay, today's modern day average of kids going into puberty, we're talking 8-9 years old, when it used to be 13, 14, 15 years old just 20-30 years ago. Okay, now there's so much MSG in every piece of food our kids are eating. They're all going into puberty super early. Also, loss of growth hormone pulsation. So there's so many short kids around. I'm a short kid. We've changed our diet. We're strictly organic. We intermittent fast, which increases human growth hormone. And Carter, literally in less than a year, has just shot up. And he's as tall as I am now. He's 14. And he's going to way surpass me. And it all comes down to how we eat. MSG exposure can cause faulty development of the hypothalamic pathways and altered endocrine control, causing reproductive issues like infertility. Again, another all too common issue today. All right, what do studies show about MSG babies? Regardless of any animal in all species, it's universal effects all across the board. Decreased body length and organ weights, ovaries, testes, adrenal glands, kidneys, spleen, pituitary. So if your doctor's telling you, hey, your kid's behind schedule, you might want to really evaluate the diet that you've been taking in during pregnancy and make some changes, especially if you're going to have another kid. Organic, wise, nutrient-dense foods. Let's be as responsible as we can. Guess what? I didn't know any of this. My wife, we didn't know any of this. 4 kids later, and health problems in all of them. It's not just MSG. It's not just vaccination. It's not just fluoride in the water. It's everything combined. Okay, it's an uphill battle for the babies today. Obesity that's difficult to correct even with proper diet. MSG will cause all kinds of digestive issues. Abnormal reproductive functions, impaired immune function, unprovoked rage, aggression, antisocial behavior, impaired cardiovascular responsiveness, high triglycerides, abnormal hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenal axis. It goes on and on, guys. MSG exposed babies are intellectually impaired. Babies' brains are 4 times more sensitive to glutamate toxicity than those of us adults. And humans in general are 20 times more sensitive to glutamate than any other animal. Okay, so we've got to be careful with this. MSG exposure during brain development has negative effects on intellectual development. Animals acted as if intellectually disabled. MSG fed to pregnant animals resulted in severe disruption of complex learning later in life. An 80% reduction in acetylcholine in the frontal lobes. So what does that mean for humans? The way it's going to show up, and I see it in my own children, is that during the first few years of development, the child may seem to be doing totally fine, developing perfectly, hitting all their academic milestones. But then as they progress into more advanced complex learning, which is happening more at like 2nd, 3rd grade level and up, they can't keep up. They can't comprehend those complex scenarios. You can explain it over and over and over again. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I used to get I still get frustrated, but I used to get so over the top frustrated and angry with one of my boys when I would try to explain mathematical concepts and just does not sink in, and I would freak out and just blame him. You're not paying attention. You. This is all your fault. It's my fault, guys. It's mine. Because I didn't raise them right. And now I have a much more understanding. We focus more time intensive on learning, and having that knowledge helps me control my own frustrations. So really, there's so many reasons why we need to understand this type of information. MSG speeds up the brain's aging process significantly. You're going to have higher contents of polyunsaturated fats. The brain already requires high oxygen content. The brain is only 2% of the body's weight, 2%, yet it requires 20% of the body's oxygen, as well as 25% as the body's glucose. So it is a massive energy producing and energy consuming organ. Brain iron levels are going to increase, especially with neurodegenerative diseases. They're going to be much, much more sensitive to free radicals and need much higher levels of antioxidants than a normal healthy person, right? So if you have a neurodegenerative disabled child, like my son Holden, it's going to be very important to supplement with some very powerful free radical scavengers that are great for the brain. And we can talk about some of those coming up. What magnifies excitotoxicity? Well, immaturity of the brain. Like I said, a child's brain is 4 times more sensitive to glutamate than an adult. Energy deficits, right? Whether it's mitochondrial injury or hypoglycemia. Again, why diet and when you eat and everything about that is so important. Very big deal, magnesium deficiency, okay? I'm a big believer in food as medicine, to a degree. To the degree that our soils are actually replenishing the food with nutrients. Our soils are so magnesium deficient, it's hard to get the magnesium you need. And even though your blood levels show you're okay, at an intracellular level, you're probably very depleted in magnesium. One of the most effective things lately that we've added for Holden that's been pretty impactful at raising that seizure threshold is magnesium. Highly recommend it. And MSG kills brain cells by creating enormous amounts of free radicals in the brain. So what's the long-term outlook, right? Because today you feel fine. I feel fine. It's not hurting me, right? The brain, like I said, is an amazing organ and can pick up the slack of these dying cells. So we don't even realize the slow death that's occurring in our brain as we speak right now. Eventually, and usually without warning, the first signs somebody will see of the damage that's been caused by glutamate toxicity will come later in life in the form of a stroke, Parkinson's disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, Alzheimer's and dementia, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, on and on and on. Okay, guys? Really, this is a big deal. Let's talk about epilepsy. So, most of the excitatory effects of glutamate and aspartate don't initially present physical signs immediately. So most people are completely unaware of the damage being done for decades. I've said this already. Even though brain functions are being adversely affected along the way. Now, one of the most obvious physical signs that you're going to see would be the occurrence of seizures. Now, we know that excess glutamate in the brain can and will precipitate seizures without causing any physical changes to the brain. But eventually, as those seizures continue over and over and over again, it will produce destruction of brain cells and its connections. So it's really important, guys, especially if you have ever had a seizure, or your kid has ever had seizures or has seizures. Even with eliminating all forms of free glutamate as much as possible, he still has seizures. But if we give in, if not even give in, say we travel, right? We eat all of our food at home with Holden. And if we travel, we take coolers and coolers of organic food and make it ourselves. But if it's something like go to Disneyland for a week or whatever, and you have to eat, one of the great things about Disneyland is they don't actually allow monosodium glutamate in any of their food, but of course you're going to get some of the other forms of glutamate like yeast extract, hydrolyzed soy protein, etc. Anyway, any of those exceptions that are made, and he'll pay for it for a long time, weeks of increased seizures. So guys, especially if there's any signs of neurodegenerative disease, epilepsy, autism, MS, you name it, avoid glutamate and aspartate, any of these forms of excitatory neurotransmitters as much as you can, because the natural occurring ones in the diet are more than enough. Aspartame, there's so much to read about aspartame. Look, everything I'm talking about is so high level. You gotta get this book, you gotta read it. But let's talk about aspartame. Aspartame is linked to cancers of the brain, the pancreas, the thyroid, the prostate, breast tumors, tumors of the testes. Sounds awesome, right? Keep drinking that diet soda. Aspartame worsens depression, causes weight gain and insomnia, worsens diabetic control, which is awful because it is the one thing doctors tell diabetics to use, right? Drink diet soda, drink Crystal Light, get sugar-free everything. And of course, they're looking for options because they can't have the high level of glucose in their blood. There are other options than aspartame. Go look at stevia, xylitol, erythritol, monk fruit, anything other than aspartame, guys, please. Causes migraines, headaches, MS, neurological disease, triggers seizures, causes blindness, damages the fetus, damages the developing brain. Even small amounts found in a stick of gum can cause migraines. And in Holden, if he ever got a piece of gum, instant seizure. Stay away from aspartame, guys. I can't even imagine the damage that I've done to my brain. When I turned 25, I'm 38, almost 39 years old. When I turned 25, things really started slowing down for me. So I switched from Coke and Pepsi to diet soda and literally just drank it like crazy for over a decade. Like crazy. I know I demolished brain cells. Okay, how do you avoid it, right? What foods are excitotoxins found in? Almost all processed foods contain excitotoxins. All of them. These are just some of the ingredients you need to look at when you're buying products. Always read the label. I don't care if it's organic. Read the label. Almost any organic chip you pull off the shelf, it's going to have yeast extract or natural flavors because they need to get that more robust flavor in there to get you to buy it. Okay? Monosodium glutamate, monopotassium glutamate, yeast extract, hydrolyzed anything, calcium caseinate. There's another caseinate. I don't remember what it is. Autolyzed yeast, textured protein, gelatin, isolated soy protein, whey protein, carrageenan, which is picking up, being used more and more and more and more. It's an isolated protein from seaweed. I mean, similar to MSG, but you'll find it in tons of dairy products. You got to read the labels. Broth and stock, natural flavors, maltodextrin, literally in almost everything, pectin, cornstarch, corn syrup, modified anything, right? Modified food starch, milk powder, soy sauce, cocoa aminos, any amino, it's glutamate, okay? It's glutamate. You gotta start eating natural foods and start really appreciating the natural flavors of foods. And then when you are exposed to what you find now is just so delicious, it's almost too much, Okay, you got to get back to the roots of natural foods. Okay, I'm trying to rush through this. I know this is already a very long video. There's so much information in this book. And where this book leaves off, Dr. Blaylock picks it up in this book. This one's called Health and Nutrition Secrets That Can Save Your Life. This book, Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills. In both books, he gives in detail ways that you can arm your body. Arm your body's defenses to battle the enormous amounts of glutamate toxicity we face every day. Natural vitamin E, that's tocopherol and tocotrienol. In the combination that naturally occurs in nature, you can find those in like a gamma E complex that's going to be combined both tocopherol and tocotrienols. You can look, if you are accustomed to reading ingredients, tocopherol will look very familiar. Tocopherol is added to a lot of foods to give that vitamin E that we know is needed. I've never seen tocotrienols on a label. You got to get tocotrienols in there as well. The first time I heard about it was from Dr. Berg when he gave one of his presentations on vitamin E, specifically from a book he'd been reading about vitamin E and the importance of tocotrienols. If you want to learn more, go to my playlist, Fear versus Freedom playlists, and find vitamin E, or the vitamins playlist. Vitamin C. Okay, vitamin E and vitamin C are phenomenal antioxidants. Okay, free radical scavengers, great for the brain. Food source vitamin C is by far the best. Okay, and if you're thinking orange juice, think again, unless you're buying oranges and fresh squeezing it. Orange juice is pasteurized. All the nutritional benefits of that orange juice is cooked away, and then they artificially supplement it back with synthetic vitamin C and put it on the shelf and say, great source of vitamin C. And you will get some vitamin C from it, but you're basically just drinking really yummy sugar water, okay? No different than drinking a Coke. Fresh oranges, fresh citrus, lemons, limes, great sources of vitamin C. Kiwi, phenomenal source of vitamin C. Bell peppers have 4 times more vitamin C than an orange does. So get some peppers, get fresh foods, get that, because not only are you going to get the ascorbate from the food, but you're also going to get bioflavonoids that are also very powerful free radicals, like quercetin and things like that are naturally occurring flavonoids in the food. Omega-3 fats, very protective to the brain. You can find that in seafoods, cod liver oil, things like that. Okay, salmon, if you eat those things. Pyruvate, coenzyme Q10, alpha-lipoic acid, acetyl L-carnitine, L-carnosine, which is a great free radical scavenger for the brain. Curcumin, which is found in turmeric. Quercetin, which I already mentioned is a flavonoid. You can get those in supplement form if necessary. B complex, again, B complex. Don't just take isolated vitamins. Okay, you're going to cause an imbalance in your body. If you're taking D3, make sure it's balanced by K2. If you're taking magnesium, make sure you're getting that you have enough calcium. Most of us have enormous amounts of calcium in our body, so taking magnesium is actually going to help balance that out. Take magnesium. Don't just take a B1 or a B6. Take the complex, and the best way to get that naturally is through nutritional yeast. You can get Bragg's nutritional yeast. Kroger has their own Simple Truth nutritional yeast. Go to Sprouts, Natural Grocers. You can get big old containers of nutritional yeast. Sprinkle that on all your food, and you'll be getting B1, B3, B5, B6, B12, the full B complex at full daily values, just as a nice little seasoning on your food. So look into that. And it's important to have minerals and trace minerals like selenium, zinc, copper, magnesium, and then the trace minerals like manganese and things like that. Eggs are a great source. Organic pasture-raised eggs are going to have high levels of selenium and zinc and a ton of healthy fats that you can need. So again, you got to pay attention to nutrition. So wow, that was a lot of information, but what's the good news? Now that you know, now that you really know, there are other options than this, right? You can find an organic version that's not going to be loaded down with not only monosodium glutamate, but GMO corn that's loaded with glyphosate, artificial colors. I mean, okay, Okay, you got GMO corn, then a bunch of synthetic vitamins in here. Maltodextrin, of course, monosodium glutamate and yeast extract together. Citric acid, red 40, yellow 6 lake, yellow 5, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cheese powders, whey protein, concentrate. I mean, there's like 4 different forms of glutamate added to this product, plus the artificial colors and flavors. It's a brain bomb, guys. We can do better, okay? Eat foods in the most natural form possible. If you want a chip, great. Find an organic version and see if you can find one that doesn't include yeast extract, maltodextrin, and things like that. It's hard. And even if you're going from Doritos to organic Doritos, you're eliminating the pesticide, right? You're eliminating the artificial colors. You're drastically reducing the amount of glutamate added to it. Make simple changes. Instead of buying this one, buy this one. It can be that easy. It can be that easy. And I want you to do it. You are in control. Read the labels all the time. Avoid MSG the best you can. Implement lifestyle changes that are permanent. Permanent lifestyle change, not a diet. A permanent lifestyle change that includes healthy diet, daily diet, that is rich in fresh foods with natural occurring vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytonutrients that are bioavailable, right? So you can arm yourself with the tools you need to combat the free radical damage. I say this in almost every video. Make a point to study nutrition every single day. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes a day. Jump on and follow Dr. Berg, follow Thomas DeLauer, follow whoever you trust that is giving you information that speaks to you as truth. For me, that's Dr. Eric Berg. I love his information. I've learned more from that guy than I think anybody, well, Russell Blaylock. These books have literally changed my life. They've changed Holden's life. Read some books. Do some research. Get off of Netflix. Put yourself first. Put your kids first. Blah. Find ways to make your health a top priority and improve your daily choices as you learn. Then take what you've learned and have implemented in your own life that you find is working, giving you positive results, and share your knowledge with anybody that's willing to listen. And it might just blow right past their head, but some of that sunk in. And then the next person that tells them that, they go, I think I've heard this before. And then the next time they hear it, they go, maybe there's something to this, right? Whether it's the fact that vaccines actually do damage and hurt people and aren't that effective at preventing illness. They do prevent illness, but it's not, the balance is not there, okay? You can get measles and be A-okay, but you can't get brain damage and be A-okay, all right? But measles can cause brain damage. Well, so do vaccines at a much higher rate. Anyway, I always veer that way just because it's so important. All of this is important. Guys, you are in control. It's your life. You don't have to do what I'm saying. Eat, drink, and be merry. I don't care. But for the people that do care and that want to learn, this is a big deal. I can't recommend this book enough. Excitotoxins, okay? Why do I care, right? Why can't I just learn it and implement it in my family and let everybody else do their own thing? I'm not trying to force this on you. Do your own thing. But if somebody out there is willing to listen and go, I had no idea. I can't figure out why my kid is so depressed or has anxiety attacks or panic attacks or keeps getting headaches. Well, I'll tell you why. They eat Chick-fil-A. They eat Taco Bell, Taco Time, Doritos, Cheetos, and in concentrated levels. There is no way to track the dose of exposure you're getting to these additives because it's literally in everything. Every Campbell's soup, every cream of whatever, everything, high concentrations because it's got to taste good, and that's why people will buy it. If you go to my Fear versus Freedom playlists, in the playlist, I put together so many playlists. There's one specifically about excitotoxins where you can hear it from the horse's mouth, from Dr. Blaylock, everything, right? You just have to have the discipline to sit there and listen to it. He's not that exciting to listen to, but I could do it all day long because it's that important to me. Anyway, hopefully I'm preaching to the choir, because I just want the best for my family. I want the best for my friends. I want the best for you, because I love you guys, because you deserve the best, because you're smart. And if you put in the time and effort to do a little bit of your own research, you can change your life. You can overcome that depression. You can overcome those anxiety attacks. You can figure out, what is it in my environment that's making me feel like shit, and how can I change it? It's up to you. It's up to you. Okay? You can't go to a doctor, have a 20-minute conversation, and they go, I know the problem. You're chemically imbalanced. Take this drug. Why are you chemically imbalanced? What is causing this imbalance? What about your diet? What about the soaps that you're using? What about the perfume that you're using? What about the air you're breathing? Is there mold in your home? There's something triggering this. Figure it out. This is just one piece. This is one piece of the puzzle. Vaccines were one piece of the puzzle. Artificial colors, one piece of the puzzle. Fluoride, one piece of the puzzle. Figure it out. Okay, God gave us everything in a natural balance, and we screwed it up with science. Get back to nature. Get back to simplicity, and your life will change. Be active also. Unplug. I need to do that more. Okay, I sit at a desk all day long. And then to decompress, let's go watch some Netflix or whatever, right? I've been adding books like crazy, and I'm going to be reviewing a lot of other books, right? We talk about excitotoxins, health and nutrition secrets that can save your life. I'm only halfway through this. This is one of the most impactful books I've ever read. Ooh. Dissolving Illusions. Dr. Suzanne Humphries. She's the best. This is such an important book. I'm going to actually review this one soon. How to End the Autism Epidemic. Phenomenal book. So written so well. It was one of the easiest books I've ever read, but one of the most powerful, powerfully put together presentation of the data to show exactly how this epidemic came to be and how we can prevent it. A couple that are in my to-read list still. Mitochondria and the Future of Medicine. I'm excited to jump into this, because the more I've studied, the more I realize that's a huge issue. The mitochondria, everything's starting around the mitochondria and around free radical issues and around energy production. And this is not necessarily a sit down and read through, but one you can jump through. 70 Remedies for Common Conditions. It's Dr. Blaylock's Prescription for Natural Health. Haven't got to that one yet. But guys, I'm just trying to give an example. Put a little time into this. If you watch this video, that's part of it. Good job. And I appreciate it. Again, I talk too much. Love you guys. Hope you have an awesome day. Bye-bye.